Thank you for gracing us here today with your presence. We are in dire need of assistance. Our king has tragically died on our last crusade, and our realm is now in chaos. We need you, teachers, researchers, and explorers, to become a part of the clans that take over the throne and restore peace to our realm of literacy. Here, you and multiple warring clans will embark on an epic journey that will take you through gauntlet of quests designed to test your might and sharpen your skills. In this episode, you will meet two heroes that are going to help you along your journey. So today, your clan is going to take part in these different challenges. You're going to be learning about gamification, implementation in your literacy classrooms, and then I'm going to show a little bit of an example of what I do to get my students engaged in learning. Every victory you earn will bring you one step closer to being named the ruler of the realm of literacy. So may the bravest clan win. So how many people right off the bat are really super excited? I think a lot of us, I see a lot of smiles. So a lot of us get really kind of excited. I grew up as getting to be a gamer. And so I played video games with a lot of my siblings. And one of the things I found for myself as being an individual with ADHD is that when I gamify a lot of my activities that I need to do in a day and look at them as quests and challenges as opposed to an individual task, I find that it engages me better and I have a better motivation. And for many of our students that we deal with in the classroom, many times are very reluctant to be interested in reading. Especially if they're struggling learners, which I've had a lot of experience getting to work with students, both as a professor and as a teacher of special education myself. And so a lot of my students who came to me needed help with some of that literacy engagement. And so we created a lot of different activities. The realm of literacy is one that I actually use with my college level students. And so they take part in epic quests throughout learning the basics of how to teach literacy at various stages of a child's development. So let's talk a little bit about what is gamification. So how many people have heard, kind of show me via thumbs up, how many people have kind of heard about this gamification? Okay, I'm seeing some hands. So gamification is this idea of taking game-based elements and embedding them into non-game settings. So it's a combination of different pieces of playing games. So if you think of games like Scrabble, for example, tabulating those different points that we get from creating different words, getting triple letter score, double word scores, those are a pointification, which are points that are earned throughout doing different types of activities. So that could be getting XP or experience points, badges, rankings, leaderboards. Another big element that we find in games is storytelling. So there has to be some type of narrative to the gameplay. If you think about Super Mario Brothers, I know I'm dating myself right now. And you think of what is the purpose of Super Mario Brothers? It's to get little Mario to be able to go rescue the princess. That's a basic, very simple story, but it's one that defines why we're doing what we're doing and why we try to avoid Goombas and Koopa Troopas and other enemies that we come across. Games have a lot of individualization as well. So that allows the player to customize the game, allowing them to personalize it to meet themselves. It allows for nonlinear navigation, which means that they can kind of pick and choose how they want to engage in the activities. They can have a lot of adaptability, which I like for being able to modify things for my students with different reading needs. And it's a lot of responsive feedback. So I'm not just, getting them to engage in content. I'm giving them feedback on what they did well, what they maybe need a little bit more help in, and what we can do to kind of make those improvements when they go to restart. The other big element that comes into play here is competition. We as humans love a good dose of healthy competition. It's what makes games engaging. It's what makes doing different types of activities fun. That's why we like to play sports. We like to root on our team and kind of, attack, for lack of better words, or beat the other team, whether it's baseball, soccer, football, all of those different activities play an important role. And so having a natural sense of competition can be very beneficial for helping some of your more reluctant readers to get involved. When you're deciding to gamify, one really important aspect is to question your motives. Why are you gamifying the course content? If it's only to make the class entertaining or more enjoying, that's not gamification. That's really edutainment. The goal of gamification isn't to just make learning fun. It's to create wonder and excitement in those same instructional objectives, but you're embedding playful elements that get students deeper into that content. So for example, one thing that I do with my students in my Foundations of Special Education class at the college level is we have a mystery that we have to solve. So Scooby and the gang get stuck at this old, creepy, almost looks abandoned schoolhouse, and they're going in, and the principal says that there's a ghost randomly abducting students from the classroom, and they have no idea why, and they ask for help. So right then and there, my students in the first day of class, I'm so excited for my first day of class tomorrow, they get introduced to this storyline that captivates them in. And so each week we go over a different disability category in an engaging and deeper way that allows the students to really go in and look at special education in a different light. I also give a lot of individualization. So my quests that they get to pursue, they can look at it from their lens. So if they are interested in going into, for example, pre-medicine, I have a lot of pre-medicine majors who take my course. So if they're looking to go into pre-med, I have told them to look at special education in terms of having a patient. So if you have a patient with complex communication needs, you're not going to be able to communicate with them in the same way. So let's look at our communication unit in a completely different light. And so the quests then become very personal for the students and become very deep diving into content that they otherwise wouldn't have ever considered to pursue. So it's really cool to be able to watch my students dive deeper, not only into their textbook, but they will do their own personal research because they want to learn more, which is really cool. And my students also really enjoy being divided into different SLU squads, as we call them, small groups. And each one comes up with their own mystery machine and team name. And so they follow throughout the whole entire course, working together and competing in these different quests. So this to me is a really fun, unique way of getting to kind of work on that. In terms of talking about gamification in education has only been around for about a decade. However, the principles that come up behind gamification, many of them, many teachers may even recognize as being some of the things that we used to do to get students really engaged into learning a new content. So the research that I have is a lot of new and more recent. There isn't a lot of research in special education in particular, which puts me in a very unique research category. So that winds up being really important. And Red, you actually asked an amazing question, because most of the research that I have looked at thus far is only higher ed. So like, it's not like they've been doing extensive studies in younger grades yet. That's kind of new and developing as well. But a lot of high schoolers and college students absolutely love this shift in what they want to pursue. So for me, it's I feel very fortunate that my college students, when I first introduced this concept, didn't kind of look at me with like, is she serious right now? It was kind of, they were like, whoa, I'm relaxed now. Now I don't feel as anxious about pursuing these quests. And for my college students, they got competitive towards the end. So like, I had one group that hands down waited until the last day of class, and they used a power up that was 5 times the XP on a quest, and it shifted my entire leaderboard. And oh my gosh, the group was in an uproar, and it was just so funny because everybody's scrambling to try and redeem extra points. So they're pursuing extra quests, not because I made them, because they naturally wanted to beat the other squads. And so they went back and kind of competed. And so that for me was really kind of interesting to be able to see that comparison. There's a lot of benefits to gamifying. So like I kind of said, increased engagement in course content. 100% I can say that my findings thus far from gamifying my class, that this is very true. Improved test scores and achievement. My students actually have as well scored about 10 points higher than when I did my lecture-based class, because they were getting in deeper into that content in a more active way than passive. And my students were very satisfied in the course. So my course evaluations came back very positive. Students kind of explained to me that they felt like they really learned a lot. As they said, they felt like they learned more than they had previously learned. And I said, no, you guys learned the same exact content. It's just how active you got made all the difference, which was really cool. And so now it's time for you guys to get into a challenge. So it is time for our first daily debate. This is one of my absolute favorite quests to do with my students. They can be a reading-based activity or an opinion-based activity where I pose an open-ended prompt for students to be able to engage in debate with one another about how they want to proceed. And so I'm going to give you a brief scenario, and I'll let you guys kind of chime in which one you think or which option you might choose. So our scenario is that you're a 6th grade teacher and you're beginning a unit on poetry reading and writing. As you announce the unit, you hear the students all in unison, ugh. So what gamification element might you try to embed in to extend some wonder and excitement in this particular unit? So we have 3 options to choose from. Option 1 is to create a pointification system and special quests for students to compete in throughout the poetry unit. Option 2 is to create a themed unit with corresponding story elements where students become the characters in the story. Or option 3, which is to create adapted poetry quests where students can compete individually or in groups to develop different types of poetry writing. So which ones do you think you might want to pursue?
2.
2? Why do you say 2?
Because I think it's the best when the person becomes the character himself.
I
He steps
agree.
to that shoes, and then he can take his opinion to other ways. That's what I think.
I love that. Yeah, letting the students become a character in that storyline really helps give that
Because
autonomy.
it's different when you read, and it's different when you became to be one of them.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Excellent. Verette, I saw your hand go too.
I choose another one. I choose, I'm going to do it like a festival. You know what I mean?
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, I like your thinking. I'm going to do it like a festival. Every character is going to show who he is. Like my colleague Yafit said, it's I like your methods. I'm in love.
Oh, thank you. I literally, as soon as I realized that this was actually a pursuit in teaching pedagogy, I was shocked. It was so cool to be able to watch my students and watch Dr. Jennifer Toney, who I believe presented earlier. She actually did a unit where they did opinion outback. And so they did opinion writing. And I went in to observe one of my student teachers. And I literally just sat there like this. And my student thought she did something wrong. And I was like, how do you have 30 students all actively engaged in opinion writing? It blew my mind. And so then I went into this deep dive, and I found a true calling in being able to take any type of subject and create what feels like a game in it, where you're still doing a lot of heavy lifting. My students usually will leave my class and they're like, I need a nap. And I was like, I know. Your brain literally grew and created new synapses. You have a new brain after leaving my class. And they were like, that's deep. I was like, thank you. Who else had ones to share?
Well, 3 can be an option too.
Yes, because 3 can give him the creativity, you know, to do something new. So it's also an option.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, you know, depending on how much time you want to invest initially and how much planning goes into something like this, option 3 might be one that, you know, could be something that you take what you already have and then you just adapt and modify for each individual student, knowing what their interests are. So then that way,
and to think out of the box too.
Yes, and to think out of the box. You know, poetry and writing in general can be so exploratory, which is extremely cool.
Exactly, and this is the place that they can express themselves.
Yes, exactly. And once they see that they can be these powerful writers, there isn't any limitation to what they can do. So my reluctant readers and writers, once they got into this kind of gamification setting, the content, the understanding of what they are doing with the reading and the writing changed so dramatically. They became, you know, deeper readers than previously. I had other students who maybe were reluctant to taking risks, felt comfortable to take those risks in a good way.
And the perspectives too.
Yes, exactly. So congratulations, we have gotten Sir Tristan's shield as the audience. So now we're going to talk about how are we going to begin to implement gamification in your classroom. Now, I am going to go over a lot of different elements that go into gamification. And my advice to you is, as I talk about these, choose one or maybe two to begin your pursuit with. Because I will tell you, I spent an entire summer rewriting a course, and I was still changing it as I started my fall semester. So it does take time, But if you do small bits at a time, you can really develop these into really, really powerful activities. So to start at first, we start with a theme and storytelling. It sets the tone of the lesson, the unit, or even the school year ahead. So I chose, for example, for our presentation, this medieval theme and coming up with a kind of witty way of kind of getting my students to be interested in literacy. Last year, in particular, my reading class that I was teaching for our general education students, they had a lot of really, really bad reading histories or reading memories. And so my goal out of implementing some gamified elements was to change kind of their opinion about what reading is and what reading can be. And so that is a really cool experience. One of the things that I got a question that says, do you have any experience with encouraging students to develop games? Not yet, but my gamification class on how to gamify things, we will actually be diving in deeper into how they will develop their own games. And so I will have to come back next year and share some of those findings once I get the opportunity to work with them more one-on-one. At least thus far, my students have called me a dungeon master, even though there isn't a dungeon in my gamification game, but it goes with the idea of Dungeons and Dragons. So the dungeon master is the one who creates the scenario that they embark on. And so they come up with the twists and turns and all sorts of different things. That's exactly what I did when I created my game. So when they take on the ghost and they have to build a trap in Minecraft to try and catch the ghost, I saw students who weren't gamers become gamers very quickly, bringing in their own handheld like controllers so they could control it better than how they would do it on the computer. It was fascinating, and it was awesome to watch my students get into this deep dive in playing. When you come up with your theme, it sets up the backdrop for your activities, your quests, your items that you create, any badges, and any challenges and quests. So for me, my Scooby-Doo theme, it is the whole entire class. You could do it for as small as a unit, or you can do it for an entire year. And so my opportunity of doing a haunted school that they have to go and investigate is that there's 13 different rooms for them to go and explore. And so as they get to explore, they encounter different types of quests. They run into characters and they get to interact with them through like a choose your own adventure. So you choose how you want to interact with a character. And if you ask a question that is quite personal, or you try to skip ahead to just find out what's going on with the ghost, the character responds in a negative way. So it's been very fun to watch my students be like, why did they get so hostile? And I was like, you got to build rapport with kids before you dive in. You know, and so there's a lot of different choices that you could make. I mean, you could do space, you could do futuristic, fantasy, steampunk, hacker, pirate. My gamification class this semester is pirate themed. So we have all sorts of items that correspond with that, that I got to draw over the winter break, which was a lot of fun. You could do superheroes, you could do the pandemic, you could do Hunger Games if you really wanted to, or you could do a historical event if you're doing nonfiction reading. Like all of these could be really fun ways to kind of get them engaged and starting with that. So I come up with my theme and kind of those elements for storytelling. Then what I start to do is to think about some game mechanics. And so this is where you need to think about, what do you want to use? So for me, I use a couple different things. I use XP, which is experience points. So every quest or activity that my students do, it earns them XP towards leveling up their skills. So they start in my SED 201 class as a is a meddling kid, and then they can rise throughout the game to a prosecutor. And so for them, those experience, oh, did somebody have a question?
Your time is up.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to know any more information, please feel free to contact me. That's my email. And I would love to talk more with you about it.